A conservative shareholder has pulled a resolution demanding JPMorgan explain its policies. David Banson is the head of a family trust. His proposal was going to be included at the upcoming JPMorgan annual meeting. It called on the bank to report how its policies based on religion or political views would impact employees. A representative for Banson said the bank has taken steps to show it's pulling back from political tests for customers. One policy at issue was the bank requiring merchants using WePay to deny payments tied to so-called social risk issues. That would include allegations of racism or sexual harassment. That policy has been dropped. To help us understand what's at stake here, I talked to Jeremy Tedesco. He is senior counsel at Alliance Defending Freedom, a public interest law firm. Jeremy, welcome. Now, a consultant for the conservative shareholder for JPMorgan, David Banson, said they pulled back a resolution against JPMorgan Chase. What's the significance here?
Well, the significance is Chase's actions. The shareholder filed a shareholder resolution asking Chase to do a study of the impact of DEI programs on their workforce, especially as it relates to the religious and political views of their employees. And this was part of a broader strategy of shareholders and others in the conservative movement to try to hold these big banks, JPMorgan Chase included, responsible for continuing to seemingly politicize their services, politicize their workforces. And what we saw from JPMorgan Chase this year was positive steps in the right direction. They dropped a social risk policy in their WePay side of their business, that's their payment processing side of their business. That was a policy that allowed them to deny services if people engaged in what they called hate or intolerance. And so those kind of policies pose a serious risk to people having their accounts canceled because of their religious or political views or expression.
Jeremy, what was the driver on making them, change their view-based policies?
Well, one of them is our Viewpoint Diversity Score business index, which is a measurement of corporate respect for free speech and religious freedom that we put out every year. It's an annual index. And one of the key things we're asking for as part of the scoring we do of these major financial institutions is that they drop policies like the one that Chase dropped that pose a serious risk of viewpoint-based debanking decisions. Chase had actually used this policy in the past to debank people for political reasons. And so the fact that they dropped it is actually a really big step. We hope other banks follow their lead and do the same thing and get rid of these kind of policies from their terms of service. And so what we're seeing here this year from JPMorgan Chase for the first time after about 2+ years of pretty steady engagement is them moving in the right direction. They should be commended for that. But we also know there's a long way to go for them to ultimately satisfy people's concerns over these issues.
Are we seeing other banks following the same suit so far as JPMorgan?
JPMorgan is really the first bank to change a policy and eliminate one that we identify in our index as posing a real serious risk for viewpoint-based debanking. But we see other banks scoring better on the index than JPMorgan Chase because they already don't have those kind of policies. And so, it's kind of the banks are kind of on a spectrum on their respect for free speech and religious freedom. Candidly, JPMorgan Chase is one of the lowest scorers on our index, but they are moving in the right direction. And it's really important that big banks like JPMorgan Chase and Bank of America make these kinds of changes. They have just unbelievable power over the financial markets. The top 5 banks own 50% of the deposit market in the country.
How much of the population would you say understands these social risk issues or policies because they're essentially depositing their paychecks into the banks?
Yeah, there's a huge education gap here. I think we're making a lot of strides. But look, when you sign up for a bank account or online services through a financial institution, you probably, like me, don't read carefully to see if these kind of policies in place. But the reality is, policies like this, these vague policies, social risk policies, reputation risk policies, these kind of vague standards that allow banking officials to debank people for religious or political reasons, or allow external activists or even government actors to co-opt those policies to shut down speech they don't like. These are real risks.
Jeremy, thank you so much for your insight and coming on our show with the latest release of the Viewpoint Diversity Index with your organization.
Yeah, thank you. Go to viewpoint-diversityscore.org to see the results for all 85 companies we scored today.
All right, we appreciate it.